You have spent your whole life giving to your children, to your job, to your community, always moving, always doing, always being there for someone else. But now, perhaps for the first time, you have a chance to stop, to breathe, to turn inward, not out of selfishness, but out of wisdom. Because the truth is, silence is not just the absence of noise. It is the beginning of clarity, of peace, of coming home to yourself. And yet, most of us were never taught how powerful silence can be, especially after 50, 60, or 70. In this time of life, when the world tells us we should slow down, I believe we should go deeper. In the next few moments, I invite you to explore something most people overlook, the quiet strength that lives within you, the kind that grows when the world gets quiet. This is not about doing more. It is about being more by doing less. Welcome to the power of silence. 1. Silence heals the mind. Let us imagine, just for a moment, that your mind is like an old attic, a space at the top of the house, once full of purpose, now cluttered with years of memories, unopened boxes, and forgotten voices. You walk up those stairs and you look around. At first, you are overwhelmed. Dust everywhere. Light barely gets through. The air feels heavy. You think, where would I even begin to clean this? That attic is your mind. After 50, 60, or 70 years of living, your mind has been collecting thoughts, memories, regrets, what-ifs, to-do lists that no longer matter, and old stories that still echo, even if they are no longer true. And yet, most people try to fix the attic by adding more noise, more distraction, more doing. But what your mind truly needs is air, space, quiet. Silence is how we open the window. It is how we let the dust settle. It is how we begin to see clearly again, not through effort, but through allowing. The science agrees. When we are quiet, even for a few minutes, our brain waves begin to slow. The part of the brain responsible for problem solving and memory begins to light up. The nervous system, so used to being in a fight or flight state, finally softens. The heart rate lowers, the breath deepens. But more importantly than science, you feel it. That first moment in the morning when the house is still and your coffee is warm. That walk outside when you hear nothing but leaves and your own footsteps. That moment when no one is calling your name and you are not expected to answer anything. That is silence healing you. Quietly. Without permission, without a plan. And it does not take hours. Sometimes just 2 or 3 minutes is enough to reset an entire day. Think of silence like a soft hand on your shoulder saying, "You are safe now. You do not have to carry all that anymore." So the next time your thoughts are racing, your heart feels tight, or the world feels too loud, try this. Do nothing. Say nothing. Sit somewhere still and just breathe, not to escape, but to return. You do not need to fix your mind. You need to listen to it. And often, what it wants most is peace. 2. Silence improves mental clarity. Have you ever stood in front of a window on a cold morning and noticed how the glass fogs up from your breath? You can see the outline of the world outside, the light, the trees, the sky, but everything is blurry. The details are lost. You know the view is there, but it is hidden, just out of reach. That is how the mind often feels as we grow older. There is wisdom within you. There is experience, memory, intuition, and understanding that has been shaped over decades. But sometimes all of that feels distant, clouded, like it is hiding behind a fog you cannot quite clear. And when that happens, people begin to say things like, "My mind is not what it used to be," or "I just cannot think clearly anymore." But here is a truth most people do not realize. Your mind is not broken. It is simply busy. Too many layers. too many tabs open like a computer that has not been restarted in years. And what clears the fog? Not more thinking, not more trying. Silence. Stillness is the gentle cloth that wipes the glass clean, not all at once, not aggressively, but slowly, patiently, breath by breath. You see, when you give your mind the gift of silence, you are not shutting it down. You are letting it breathe. Scientists have found that silence stimulates the growth of new brain cells in the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory, learning, and emotional regulation. That means silence does not just calm you. It actually helps your brain renew itself. And yet, this kind of renewal does not come from solving puzzles, taking vitamins, or downloading brain training apps. It comes from doing nothing for just a little while. Think about how many thoughts run through your head in a single hour. What to eat, who to call, what to clean, what to worry about next. Most of them repeat. Most of them are noise. But when you step into silence, even briefly, the unnecessary starts to fall away. The urgent becomes less urgent. The mind begins to organize itself. You start to remember what matters. It is in silence that forgotten memories float to the surface, not to hurt you, but to remind you. It is in silence that ideas rise, soft and gentle but clear. It is in silence that you can finally hear the part of your mind that is wise, not anxious. That voice is always there, but it is quiet and so often drowned out by the constant buzz of the outside world. Have you ever noticed that the best ideas come in the shower or during a walk or while staring out the window? That is not an accident. That is clarity returning when the noise fades. One man once told me that after retiring, he spent months feeling scattered. He could not focus on books like he used to. He forgot what day it was. He even started to question his sharpness. But then he began a small ritual. 10 minutes each morning with no phone, no television, no talking. Just a chair, his breath, and the sound of his thoughts. And after 2 weeks, he told me something remarkable. I do not know if my brain got better, he said, but I finally feel like I can hear it again. You see, clarity is not something you chase. It is something that returns when you make space for it. So the next time your mind feels foggy, instead of trying harder, try quieter. Instead of searching for answers, sit and let them come to you. Wipe the window gently. Let the light in. Your mind is not fading. It is waiting. 3. Silence reconnects you with yourself. Imagine being away from home for many, many years. You have traveled far. You have carried weight, made decisions, faced storms, and walked roads you never expected. At times, you may have forgotten what home even felt like, but one day something in you says, it is time to go back. That home is you, and silence is the road that brings you there. You see, for most of our lives, we are not just busy, we are becoming a spouse, becoming a parent, becoming a worker, a caregiver, a helper. We pour our energy into the people we love, the roles we play, and the things we feel responsible for. And all of that matters. It shapes us. But it can also pull us far from ourselves. So far, in fact, that when the world finally slows down, after retirement, after the children have grown, after the noise fades, we look in the mirror and quietly ask, who am I now? It is a question that surprises many people in their 50s, 60s, or 70s. Because for the first time in years, the roles are not defining you anymore. The schedule is not filling your days, and in that space, there is both freedom and fear. This is where silence becomes more than just quiet. It becomes a homecoming. In silence, without titles, without tasks, you begin to notice the parts of yourself that got left behind. Your curiosity, your softness, your wonder, your voice, and maybe even your pain. Yes, the parts you did not have time to process before, the moments you were too tired to feel fully. But here is the grace. Silence does not judge what it finds. It simply opens the door and invites you in. One woman once told me that after spending decades raising 4 children, running a household, and caring for an aging husband, she woke up one morning to an empty house and felt like a stranger in her own life. She tried to stay busy, filling her calendar with activities, appointments, background noise. But the emptiness remained. Until one morning, without knowing why, she sat down on her back porch with a cup of tea and just listened. Not to anything outside, but to herself. It was awkward at first. She even said it felt lonely. But day by day, the silence became a friend. I realized, she said, that I had not truly heard my own voice in years. And when I finally did, I liked her. Silence gives you that gift. It does not fill the space for you. It helps you see that you were always enough to fill it yourself. We spend so much time looking outward, seeking answers, approval, identity. But silence turns the gaze inward, not in a selfish way, but in a sacred way. Because what if your true self has been patiently waiting all along? Not the version of you others needed or expected, but the one who knows what brings you joy, what makes you feel safe, what gives you peace, the one who remembers your dreams, your values, your inner compass. Silence is how we meet that person again, not through analysis, not through fixing, but through simply being. So if you have been feeling lost, disconnected, or unsure of your place in this season of life, I invite you to stop searching outward. Sit still. Let the silence speak. You may just hear someone beautiful calling you home, and that someone is you. 4. Silence helps the body heal. Your body is not just a machine. It is a finely tuned instrument, capable of rhythm, harmony, sensitivity, and response. But like any instrument, it can fall out of tune. Years of stress pull the strings tighter than they were ever meant to go. Long nights of worry dull the notes. Endless giving, without pausing, leaves the body tired, shaky, uncertain of its own music. And yet, there is something simple, powerful, and often overlooked that can bring your body back into balance. Silence. Not the kind of silence where you hold your breath. Not the silence of gritting your teeth and pushing through. But the kind of silence that invites your body to exhale, to soften, to realign with its own natural rhythm. You may not feel it at first. In fact, you might even resist it. When the house gets quiet and your calendar clears, the silence can feel uncomfortable. But stay with it, because that discomfort is often the doorway to healing. Physiologically, silence does incredible things. Research shows that just 2 to 5 minutes of complete silence a day can reduce blood pressure, lower heart rate, and decrease levels of cortisol, the hormone released during stress. Your body, like a tightly wound violin, responds not to more tension, but to release. Think about it. When your mind is constantly alert, your muscles hold on, your jaw clenches, your breath stays shallow, your digestive system slows, your immune system weakens. But when you enter silence, true silence, your nervous system begins to switch modes. It moves from fight or flight to what scientists call rest and repair. That is when your body finally begins to heal itself. Not because of a pill, not because of something external, but because it is wired to restore itself if you give it the space. One man in his early 70s told me that for years he had suffered from tension headaches. He blamed his age, his posture, his medication. But after attending a mindfulness class at his local library, he started sitting in silence for 10 minutes every morning before breakfast. No music, no movement, just stillness and breath. After 3 weeks, his headaches reduced by more than half. What changed? His relationship with noise, His willingness to trust that his body did not need to be fixed. It needed to be heard. Your body is always speaking to you. But in a noisy life, we stop listening. Silence brings the conversation back. It says to your shoulders, you can drop now. It says to your heart, you do not have to race. It says to your breath, come home. This kind of silence does not require a retreat or a cabin in the woods. It can happen in your own living room with the television off and the phone turned face down. It can happen in your garden, in your favorite chair. In the moment before you fall asleep, you do not need perfect conditions. You only need to pause, to allow, to tune back in, because your body remembers its song, and with the help of silence, it will sing again. 5. Silence inspires creativity and inner growth. Inside each of us, there is a garden. For some, it is full and blooming. For others, it is quiet, overgrown, perhaps even forgotten. But here is the beautiful truth. The soil is still good. Even if it has been many years since you planted anything just for yourself, your creativity, your imagination, your inner world, it is still there, waiting patiently beneath the surface. And silence is the rain. You see, creativity is not just for artists or musicians. It is not limited to people with paintbrushes or poetry books. Creativity is the way your soul expresses itself. It is how your inner life speaks to the outer world. It lives in the way you tell a story, arrange your living room, write a letter, cook a meal, dream a new idea, or reflect in a journal. But creativity does not like noise. It does not shout to be heard. It does not fight for space in a crowded mind. It waits for stillness. Silence is what clears the weeds. Silence is what loosens the soil. Silence is what gives your inner self permission to create without needing to be perfect. One woman once told me she had not picked up a pencil to draw since she was in high school. She raised a family, built a business, lost a husband, and filled her years with all the important things. But at age 67, she began sitting in silence each morning. Nothing forced, just stillness and breath. And one day, without planning it, she opened a drawer, found an old sketchbook, and began to draw again. Tears came, not because the drawing was beautiful, but because it reminded her of a version of herself she had long buried. The young girl who used to dream, who used to create for joy, not for praise. That version of you still lives inside, and silence is the path back to her, or to him. When the world goes quiet, your imagination wakes up. The words return, the ideas form, the colors rise in your mind like the first sunrise after a storm. There is something incredibly healing about creating with no goal, not to be published, not to be praised, just to feel alive. Silence gives you that space. It tells your mind, you are safe now. You can dream again. And it is not only creativity that grows in silence. So does wisdom. So does self-awareness. So does the willingness to forgive, to reflect, to ask deeper questions. This is what we often miss in the noise, the slow, sacred process of inner growth. Growth that does not shout. Growth that does not perform. Growth that quietly shapes you from the inside out. So if you have been wondering, what now? What is left for me in this season? Perhaps the answer is not out there. Perhaps it is already within you, buried in the soil, waiting for just a little quiet. Water it with stillness. Let the garden grow. 6. Silence builds inner strength and self-worth. There is a flame inside you. It is small, quiet, steady. It has flickered in storms, dimmed in heartbreak, and nearly disappeared in moments of deep loss. But it has never gone out. This flame is your inner strength, your worth, the part of you that knows who you are, even when the world forgets. And in the silence, you can finally feel its warmth again. You see, we live in a culture that celebrates the loud, the visible, the measurable. Success is often tied to productivity, praise, and performance. From a young age, we are taught that our value comes from what we do, not from who we are. So we build identities on titles, on achievements, on usefulness. I am a parent. I am a provider. I take care of others. I make things happen. And those identities serve us. For a time, they give us purpose. They connect us to others. But then, life changes. We retire. The house empties. Our bodies slow down. People stop asking for our help. And suddenly, the world gets quieter, but not in a peaceful way. In a way that leaves us asking, am I still needed? Am I still valuable if I am no longer doing as much? This is where silence becomes more than rest. It becomes revelation. Because silence strips away what is temporary and reveals what is eternal. In silence, there is no applause, no task to finish, no one to impress, only you, with yourself. And in that stillness, something powerful begins to rise. Not noise, not achievement, but truth. The truth that you were never your role. You were never your job. You were never your to-do list. You were, and always will be, worthy, simply because you exist. Silence teaches this not through logic, but through presence. When you sit in silence long enough, you begin to notice things you never had time to feel before. The quiet dignity in your breath, the resilience that carried you through years of pain, the wisdom etched, not in books, but in the lines on your face. One man in his late 60s told me that after losing his business and facing health struggles, he felt like a shell of who he used to be. I had no purpose, he said. I was just existing. But instead of trying to chase after some new version of success, he did something radical. He stopped. Every morning, he lit a candle, sat in silence, and said nothing. Just breathed. Just was. He did this for weeks. And one day, he looked at the candle and realized the flame he had thought was lost was still in him. It had never gone out. It had only been buried under years of noise, shame, and forgetting. I realized, he said, that I do not need to be useful to be worthy. I just need to be present. That is the gift of silence. It does not ask you to prove anything. It only asks you to be. And in doing so, it reminds you that your strength is not in how much you can lift or how many people rely on you. Your strength is in your stillness, your ability to endure, your quiet knowing, your wisdom earned not in noise but in time. We often think of strength as loud, muscles, speeches, action. But true strength, especially in this season of life, is often soft. It is patient. It is self-contained. It is the flame that flickers gently and never dies. So if you have been questioning your place in the world, if you have been feeling invisible or forgotten, let silence show you what has always been true. You are not less. You are more, because now you see. You see with eyes that have cried. You listen with ears that have heard too much. You speak less because you know more. That is not weakness. That is power. And silence will remind you of it again and again. Sit with yourself, not to escape the world, but to remember your place in it, not to hide from life, but to fully return to it. You have not disappeared. You are not done. You are not irrelevant. You are the quiet flame, still burning, still strong, still you. You know, I did not always understand the value of silence. For most of my life, I thought being busy meant I was doing something right. That being helpful, being needed, being involved, that was what gave me meaning. But somewhere along the way, I began to feel tired, not just physically, deep down, like something in me was always running even when I sat still. and that scared me. It was not until I started paying attention to the quiet, not avoiding it, not filling it, that I realized the silence was not empty. It was honest. It was where I finally met myself again, without all the roles, the noise, the distractions. And I will be honest with you, it was not easy at first. Silence brought up feelings I had pushed aside for years, regrets, grief, even questions I did not have answers to. But in time, I began to notice something softer underneath all of that. Peace, stillness, a kind of strength I had never really given myself credit for. So, if you are still with me at this point in the video, thank you. Not just for watching, but for being open, for sitting with your own thoughts, your own breath, even if just for a little while. I am still learning how to be at home in the quiet, but every time I return to it, I remember something I hope you feel too, that we are not lost. We are simply coming back to ourselves. And that, to me, is the most meaningful journey of all. Thank you for walking a little of that path with me today. I hope you carry something gentle with you from this. I know I will.